I'm a bad motherfucker.
What's going on, guys? It's David. This is Smart Fitness, and today we're going to be going over a supplement review, a pre-workout review of Red Lab Swole Pre-workout, the sour cherry flavor. So this big boy right here. Now this is honestly, it's pretty good. It's a pretty decent pre-workout. The weight of it, I've got my laptop to the side, so if you see me looking over there, that's pretty much all I'm doing. The weight of it is roughly 1.44 kilograms for the entire thing. However, their breakdown of actual ingredients in and of itself, in terms of medicinal stuff such as caffeine, citrulline, which we'll get to in a second, is based on full scoops, but the dosing, if you will, in terms of what it is per container, is based on half scoops. So whatever it says based on the total dosing for a full scoop, you basically have to cut that in half, and that gives you how many scoops you will have for the entire product in and of itself. So it ends up being more or less like a 30-day supply if you're taking full scoops. So let's get right down into the business and the nitty-gritty of it. Now, what does this product actually taste like? Does it taste sour, and does it taste like cherry? Not really. It's kind of sour. I noticed that it was a little bit bitter when I bit my tongue one day, and then had a little bit just from, I guess, having the cut. But as for it being bitter in and of itself, not so much. Did it taste like cherry? Kind of. To be honest, it tasted pretty synthetic. Which makes sense based on the non-medical ingredients. The first non-medical ingredient that it has is actually maltodextrin, which is going to be a sweetener of sorts, but then it also has sucralose later on. So it's kind of odd that they have two sweeteners in it, but I mean, we are in an era where people enjoy being highly caffeinated and highly stimulated and sweet, and so, I mean, cater to the market that's going to get you rich, right? So, it's more or less what you'd expect from a high-dose stimulant-based pre-workout. Beyond citrulline malate and basically arginine, there's not a whole lot on here in terms of non-stim-based products. So citrulline is dosed very well in this product. It has 10 grams for a full scoop or 5 for a half scoop, and typically, I've been taking around 30 grams, so about 0.75 to 0.8 of a scoop, just because I don't really require a ton more than that at this point in time based on body weight demands and training style. So for me, that 8 grams is quite adequate that I end up getting from not taking a full scoop. As you know, beta-alanine helps, citrulline malate, not beta-alanine, helps with just general cell swelling through being a vasodilator. So if you're looking to get a quick pump, if you're looking to look like Arnold, that's basically the way to go about it. The next ingredient is beta-alanine, and that's dosed at 6 grams or 6,000 milligrams. It's dosed pretty well for what you'd expect. Some people say that they get tingles from taking this pre-workout, like my younger brother John and my friend Luke. They said that they get tingles from taking high doses of beta-alanine. Honestly, I didn't really notice a whole lot in terms of tingles. Maybe I've just become desensitized to it. I've, I guess, been taking too much pre-workout, and I'm what you would call an addict. The same way somebody is addicted to heroin, I am addicted to pre-workout. Not actually, though. So yeah, beta-alanine dosed pretty well. Acetyl L-carnitine is dosed at 1.5 milligrams. I mean, it's decently dosed. The literature, which I'm going to jump into for that, its purpose is to more or less provide energy of some sort. It's decently dosed for an amino acid being used in a pre-workout. The only form of way that I could see how it's providing energy is through like gluconeogenesis per se, to improve ATP demands. But depending on your use, like stuff for memory loss, it's actually upwards of 3 grams. So for a pre-workout, it's adequately dosed, but for other outside type of stuff, it's kind of eh. The next ingredient on the list is L-Tyrosine, and that's also dosed at 1.5 grams. This is another amino acid, obviously, as we know. It helps with dopamine and adrenaline per se, so you could argue it's a stimulant of some sort, and it's going to work through that. However, research doesn't really support it doing a whole lot unless it's with L-Dopa being needed. So simply increasing your L-Tyrosine, it doesn't really lead to an increase in catecholamine or like obviously dopamine responses. So it's might not actually be doing anything. It could just be a filler product because it seems to be a buzz in a lot of supplements these days. Typically, high end is around 3 grams, low end is around 500 milligrams, but on average, about 150 milligrams per kilogram of body weight is what I was able to find on Indeed.com. So if you're 130 pounds, this dosing is pretty accurate for literature. But again, if you don't actually have L-Dopa being an issue, having high amounts of L-Tyrosine likely isn't going to do a whole lot because you're just basically putting it in your body as a substrate. So yeah, it's not going to do a ton. The next ingredient is Mateen Sulfate, and that's at 1 gram. It's a metabolite of L-Arginine, supposed benefits with like pain perception and that sort of stuff. It also works as a neurotransmitter, or plays a role with neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. So again, if that's kind of the role, it's going to be acting as a stimulant of some sort, so some sort of like inhibition to pain per se. But the thing is, a lot of the studies where it shows that it has been effective, it hasn't actually been through oral supplementation. It's been through injections in humans and in rodents and other animals. So if it's actually doing anything, we aren't entirely sure at this point in time. The next thing that we'd want to be taking a look at is the dosing. So there's very limited research in terms of what it is for orals, but typically what I've found was around 1.6 to 6.4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So for a 150 pound person, you would use about 217 to 435 milligrams. If orally actually does anything, then this is within range per se. The next ingredient on here would be Arginine Silicate inositol, and in brackets it has nitrosiginin, and that's a registered trademark of this type of arginine, and that's dosed at 1 gram as well. So there's a ton of research on this like nitrosiginin product, but the thing is, how much of that is actually quantifiable research versus like just product placement and studies where they're pumping their own horn? It's kind of hard to say. So it supposedly helps with absorption of other minerals and vitamins, but looking at actual like evidence-based sites like Examine.com and WebMD, there wasn't really a ton to grab on it. There's also a lot of research on it with animals and not a ton with humans. So, based on that, it could theoretically be a useful substance. But at the same time, if you're already having close to 10 grams of citrulline malate, unless you're getting that full scoop, then you are having that 10 grams. Do you really need that arginine? Especially when we already know that citrulline is absorbed better in the body. Citrulline gets converted into arginine in the kidneys anyways and becomes more readily available. So, based on that, it's questionable. If you were to look at it specifically from dosing, not so much usefulness, it's slightly underdosed. Most dosages that I've found were about 1.5 grams, not so much 1 gram in and of itself. But if citrulline's already high, not really a big deal. The next ingredient is Dmae, and that's around 500 milligrams. So this is a choline molecule, as we know. It's supposed like mind health compound. That's what it's been deemed on Google searches from what I could find. Supposedly it aids in decreasing cognitive impairment, but there's not really a ton of evidence on it, so it could just be more of a placebo-based factor, per se. So, based on that, is it doing anything? Maybe not. We don't really know. Next, we've got caffeine at 400 milligrams. That's a very high dose, actually, for a whole 40-gram scoop, so a full scoop. It's adequate. It's good. It's what you would anticipate when you're having 40 grams per scoop of weight. As we know, caffeine is a central nervous system stimulator, and this pre-workout is very based on increasing stimulants. So, based on that, it makes sense that it would be a well-dosed stim pre-workout per se. We don't need to go a ton into caffeine. We know that it works. We know that it's an ergogenic aid. Yeah, so moving on. The next ingredient is Dendrobium with the actual stem itself. That's at 400 milligrams. I found sites saying that it's touted as like the new Dmae, which is kind of odd, but I've taken DMHA, and I haven't really noticed a huge difference with this whole Dendrobium, but I did notice a big difference when I was using DMHA, so again, questionable at best. Mostly people kind of tooting their own horn, but long story short, it's a compound from Eastern Asia. It's a herb of some sort that works supposedly as a digestive aid and reduces inflammation. So if it's reducing inflammation, it could be playing a role in decreasing fatigue. But it's hard to say if it's actually doing anything. The assumption is that it's working as a central nervous system stimulator as well, because of the fact that it's being compared to DMA, but I couldn't really find a ton of literature on what the actual mechanism is of this product itself. So theoretically, it's doing absolutely nothing as well. The last ingredient on here would be black pepper extract, and that's at 5 milligrams. It's adequate based on what its purpose is. It's basically just being used as a way to increase absorption of all these other ingredients used. If you wanted to be picky, you could say that it's kind of a low dose because the typical average is around 20 milligrams. Typically around 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight, so yeah, I mean, realistically, it is low. All right, ladies and gents. So my final verdict on this product, taste-wise, I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. It was exceptionally sweet, especially if you're taking a full scoop. It almost becomes overwhelming at times, but it does taste good. I like it. It's a good tasting pre-workout, but it's not sour at all, like it claims to be. As for dosing, as a pre-workout for a pump, citrulline's exceptionally high, so sure, good. For stims, yeah, it's very high. But beyond that, it doesn't really have a whole lot going for it. It doesn't have any like adaptogens per se. It doesn't have any real focusing agents in it per se. It's kind of what you'd expect, where they're just kind of throwing stims and pumps at a pre-workout. For the price that it is, it's pretty pricey for retail value. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I hope you actually watched the end where I gave you my final verdict. So, long story short, give it a shot. Otherwise, do whatever the hell you're going to do. Alright, ladies and gents, like, comment, subscribe, stay strong.